Only a year after the end of the First World War, the newly established League of Nations afforded South Africa a mandate to govern Southwest Africa, now known as Namibia. The Union would have full power of administration and legislature over the territory. Over the course of 1920, more than 60,000 South African miners went on a strike. 21 miners were killed by the police during a peaceful demonstration. The mining industry was not profiting enough because of the cheap trading deals between South Africa and Asia. This led to a long-lasting conflict between the Union of South Africa and India. As a solution to the constant strikes and demonstrations, the Industrial Conciliation Act was declared. White workers were given a secure position against any employment cuts. This also prevented working blacks to be considered as employees. This was one of the last major enactments before South Africa became an independent state. 1930, when the British authorities still ruled the Union of South Africa, white women received the right to vote. This obviously increased the chance of a white ruler coming into power. It was one of the many harsh and unnecessary things done that led to the apartheid era. In 1931, the Parliament of the United Kingdom passed the Statute of Westminster, which removed any remaining British authority over any of its dominions. The statute ultimately gave South Africa, as well as the other dominions, the right to control its own domestic and foreign affairs. South Africa could now establish its own diplomatic corps and government. The Statute of Westminster stated that no law hereafter made by the Parliament of the United Kingdom would be implemented in any of the UK's dominions. 3 years later, in 1934, the South African Parliament secured this decision by enacting the Status of the Union Act. This declared the country to be a sovereign, independent state. The Statute of Westminster and the Status of the Union Act enabled the Union of South Africa to be represented separately in the League of Nations. Unlike before, they wouldn't have to be represented under the British Empire. In 1910, before World War I broke out, a law was passed that deprived all black South Africans from buying land. As a result, various inner but dilapidated suburbs were formed, a refuge for all the blacks without homes. In 1934, after World War I, the Slums Act was declared. It applied for the demolition of all non-white areas, which at the time were considered slums. In 1935, the racist voting system worsened. All black voters were removed from the common roll and placed on a separate voting roll. Blacks throughout the Union were represented by 4 different senators, except all of them were white. Despite the fact that South Africa was now an independent state, it was being governed unfairly by white people. In a failed attempt to resolve noticeably rising tension between the races, the Wage Act was implemented. It applied for the rule of equal pay for equal work at all levels. No wage-fixing agency was allowed to discriminate on grounds of race or color. What seemed to be a rare instance of generosity actually amounted to gross discrimination. This was enacted in 1937.